A cathedral is often called the mother church of a diocese, and a diocese is a geographical area. And it's the place whereby the bishop has his seat, which is what the word means. The seat is called a cathedra in Latin, and so the bishop has his or her seat in the cathedral.
The cathedral was the subject of a competition run in the early 1930s, and after about a year, the then Edward Morph, later Sir Edward Morph, won the competition for the construction of the cathedral here. They don't actually start work until about 1934, when they start to pile the site. So in about 1957 they start building the nave, and Her Majesty the Queen comes and consecrates the cathedral in 1961. It's everything you'd expect from a medieval cathedral, but it uses modern techniques. The cathedral is essentially only two materials. It's mass brickwork or mass masonry, which is how all great medieval cathedrals and other buildings were constructed. It's load bearing, and then all the high level vaults, the roof structures, much of the tower is this cast concrete, which they pumped, in the case of the top of the tower, to about 160 feet. So it's a long way up. And that's very innovative, because that meant they could have the building wider, they could encompass more space. It makes it easier to construct. Without taking that bold step of combining modern construction techniques and traditional techniques, we wouldn't have the building that we have today. We're representing the cathedral for the 21st century. For the first time, we've got disabled access with ramps and lifts, so the building is fully accessible for anybody who wants to come here.
The Dean's role is much broader than the cathedral. Some of our challenges are about the uniqueness we have about this building. One of the first things that happened when I joined was a £7 million project, some of which is about the building, but the other is about the people, and being able to capture the history and the stories of people who've built this cathedral. That's unique in Britain, which is such a privilege. We offer worship at periods in the day, which gives something that most people just do not have in their working day, which is just 15, 20 minutes, half an hour to be quiet and to do other things.
The daily pattern of worship here in the cathedral really hinges around the bookends, if you like, of the day, of morning prayer and evening prayer. My job is based at the cathedral, but spending most of my time at the University of Surrey. In my capacity as chaplain to the university, I'm mainly involved in pastoral care of staff and students, if that's somebody having a bit of a rough time or needs some support or encouragement. The thing I most enjoy about being at Guildford Cathedral is the sheer variety of what goes on. There are particular things I'd want to pick out. I just love the music and the talent and ability of the musicians.
So music in any cathedral is hugely important. It's part of the daily monastic tradition of prayer, and it enhances, transforms and uplifts that prayer to God. We use our choir, our cathedral choir, 8 times a week to lift that prayer to heaven, as it were. And we have a choir made up these days of a boys' choir and then a separate girls' choir, and then we have 6 professional singing men whom are called lay clerks. Every day at 5:30 there's a sung service of choral evensong, and that takes place every day regardless of the time of year, regardless of how many people might be in the building. And when it's not being sung by the cathedral choir, it might be that we have a voluntary choir, such as our Guildford Cathedral Singers, adult voluntary choir, singing that service.
We are there to welcome people as one of our main tasks, because obviously not everybody coming to the cathedral is a regular attender. We get a lot of visitors for services and special events, and so the stewards are there to welcome, to answer questions. And then, of course, during services, we have a role of ensuring that the movement of people, when it's necessary, people know where to go and when to go, so that it becomes a dignified procedure rather than a sort of chaotic stampede.
Being a guide involves really a lot of different sort of things. Obviously greeting people, telling them things about the cathedral, encouraging them to make the best use of all the wonderful displays we now have available, and just generally enjoying the peace and the serenity of this wonderful building. They're very surprised by the inside. I have to be honest that a lot of people find the outside very difficult. And when they step inside, they are taken away by how bright and peaceful the building is, and how really rather different from how it announces itself from the outside.
Well, I have to look after all the artefacts here. I'm really the custodian of these artefacts, that's the idea. I also do research on the items we've got here, and what I ought to explain is that we don't just have pieces of silver and other artefacts belonging to the cathedral. We have a lot from the parishes, and whilst we're a modern cathedral, we have items which go back to the 12th century as far as that, so it's really going back a long way. Amongst the more unusual objects that we've got, of course, are bricks, which the cathedral was built. And after the war, when they started continuing the building, because as you know, it was closed during the wartime, and you were invited to buy a brick like this for 2 and 6pence in those days, which I think probably is about £8, something like that today in value, and sign your name on it.
Guildford Cathedral was built by people buying bricks. 200,000 people bought the bricks that built our cathedral, and that is unique. And for us now in our generation, those people are still alive. And that's part of what we're capturing in our oral history stories that are available in the cathedral, is for people to speak about their own experience of building a cathedral. And that's absolutely unique in the world, let alone in England. And so to be the people's cathedral is, I think, such a terrific thing.